The Vermont dawn often painted the sky in hues of soft rose and ethereal gold, a gentle prelude to the rigorous day on Alara Vance's farm. But this particular morning, as Alara prepared her produce for the weekly farmers' market in Willow Creek, the sky seemed to mirror the muted tones of her own existence. At 47, Alara was a woman woven from the earth itself, her hands calloused, her face weathered by sun and wind, her sensible clothes perpetually dusted with soil. Her long dark hair, threaded with silver, was usually confined in a practical braid, and her eyes, though often hidden behind simple spectacles, held a quiet, discerning depth. She lived a life of profound simplicity on her small, ancestral farm. Willow Song Organics, a patchwork of rich, dark soil nestled amidst the rolling green hills of rural Vermont. Her only companion was her elderly aunt, Beatrice, a gentle woman whose fading memory made her presence more ethereal than substantial. Alara's passion was a paradox. To many, she cultivated imperfect produce. Her carrots often spiraled with playful kinks, her tomatoes ripened in charmingly uneven shapes, and her peppers sometimes sported unexpected bumps. Yet, beneath their aesthetically unconventional exteriors lay an explosion of flavor, a richness that hinted at the deep, living soil and the heirloom seed she meticulously tended. Other farmers at the Willow Creek market, with their uniformly perfect, mass-produced vegetables, often regarded Alara's stall with a mix of pity and polite disdain. They saw her as an anachronism, a stubbornly old-fashioned farmer clinging to outdated methods, seemingly oblivious to the demands of modern aesthetics. Her life was one of quiet solitude, broken only by the rhythm of the seasons, the whispered secrets of the soil, and the occasional brief interactions at the market. She would work from dawn till dusk, her movements economical, her mind absorbed in the intricate dance of plant life. Dinners were simple, often just fresh vegetables from her garden, eaten in silence in her small, cozy farmhouse kitchen, the only sound the gentle purr of the ancient cat that often curled on her lap. Her world was small, self-contained, and to some, terribly lonely. Yet, within this seemingly isolated existence lay a profound, hidden depth. Alara Vance was not just a farmer, she was a botanist by training, a scholar of plant genetics and sustainable agriculture. With a degree from a prestigious Ivy League university, a small, discreet diploma tucked away in an old cedar chest in her attic was the only remaining evidence of that past life. Her true teacher, however, had been her grandmother, a quiet, brilliant woman who had owned a renowned heirloom seed bank and possessed an almost mystical understanding of how soil, climate, and seed interacted to produce unparalleled flavor. Alara carried her grandmother's legacy, a worn, leather-bound journal filled with meticulous notes on soil composition, ancient cultivation techniques, and even cryptic recipes for natural fertilizers. This journal, its pages filled with elegant, almost artistic handwriting, was her most prized possession, a silent companion on her quiet journey. She often ran her fingers over its cover, her gaze distant, remembering lessons not just about farming, but about seeing true value beyond superficial appearances. One particularly brisk Saturday morning at the Willow Creek Farmers Market, a bitter wind whipped through the stalls, carrying the scent of damp earth and freshly baked bread. Alara's display, while vibrant with color, still featured her signature wonky produce, a mound of plump, deeply red tomatoes, misshapen but bursting with juice, slender, gnarled carrots, and bumpy, emerald green zucchinis. Most shoppers gravitated towards the perfectly symmetrical offerings of her neighbors. Suddenly, Alara noticed an elderly woman, frail and shivering, hovering hesitantly near a pile of bruised apples at a neighboring stall. Mrs. Gable, a beloved but impoverished local widow, clutched a few crumpled dollar bills in her trembling hand. "Just enough for 2 apples, dear," she murmured to the farmer, her voice barely audible over the wind. The farmer, a burly man named Jed, sighed impatiently. "Mrs. Gable, you know apples are 3 for $5. Can't break the set for that." He gestured vaguely to his perfect, gleaming fruit. His produce was visually flawless, cultivated for market appeal, not for charity. Mrs. Gable's shoulders slumped, her gaze filled with a familiar mix of shame and resignation. She began to turn away, her meager funds insufficient to meet the market's demands for perfection. Alara's heart ached. She knew Mrs. Gable often struggled, making do with what little she had. Despite her own modest earnings, a deep sense of compassion, an echo of her grandmother's generosity, surged within her. She moved quietly from behind her stall, a basket of her own imperfect produce held discreetly in her arms. "Mrs. Gable," Alara said softly, her voice cutting gently through the wind. The old woman looked up, startled. "Please, don't worry about it. These are for you." Alara gently placed the basket in the old woman's frail hands. Inside were several of her gnarled, but deeply fragrant, tomatoes, a bunch of her crooked carrots, and a handful of plump, speckled strawberries. All imperfect in form, but bursting with the vibrancy of fresh, organic life. "Oh, Alara, dear," Mrs. Gable stammered, her eyes wide with surprise and gratitude. I couldn't possibly. I don't have enough." "It's on the house, Mrs. Gable," Alara insisted, her eyes warm and kind. "A gift. And trust me, these are some of the sweetest tomatoes you'll ever taste." She winked, a rare, playful gesture. "Don't let their looks fool you." Mrs. Gable, tears welling in her eyes, clutched the basket as if it contained pure gold. "Thank you, dear. Thank you so much. You have a good heart." She shuffled away, her steps lighter, a profound gratitude radiating from her small frame. Jed, the neighboring farmer, watched the exchange, shaking his head. "Still giving away your profits. Alara, you'll never make a living selling those ugly things, let alone giving them away." His tone was dismissive, judgmental. He saw foolishness where Alara saw humanity. Alara merely smiled, a quiet, resolute expression. She knew the true value of her produce, a value that transcended mere aesthetics and market prices. This small act of kindness, performed without fanfare or expectation of reward, was Alara's save the cat moment. It showcased her inherent generosity, her unwavering belief in the deeper worth of things, and her quiet defiance of a world that often prioritized appearance over substance. It was a glimpse of the Alara Vance few ever truly saw, a woman whose compassion ran as deep as the roots of her beloved, imperfect carrots. And as the day wore on, her quiet stall, with its seemingly ugly produce, patiently awaited a fateful encounter that would challenge all notions of perfection. The vibrant chaos of the Willow Creek Farmers Market was a symphony of sounds and smells, the earthy aroma of fresh produce, the sweet perfume of baked goods, the cheerful chatter of vendors, and the occasional squawk of a disgruntled chicken. For Alara Vance, it was the culmination of weeks of tireless labor, a direct connection between her hands in the soil and the plates on people's tables. But this particular Saturday morning, the usual pleasant buzz was pierced by a grating discord as a sleek, black limousine, an utterly incongruous sight, glided to a halt at the edge of the rustic market. From its tinted windows emerged Elias Thorne, a name whispered with reverence and trepidation in the culinary world. He was a chef of formidable reputation, owner of the Michelin-starred Elysium in Boston, a temple of haute cuisine where reservations were booked months in advance. In his early 50s, Elias possessed an almost architectural elegance, his dark suit impeccably tailored, his silver hair swept back with precision, his eyes, sharp and critical, constantly scrutinized his surroundings, always searching for perfection. He was a man obsessed with aesthetics, believing that true culinary artistry began with ingredients that were not just flavorful, but visually flawless. He had arrived at Willow Creek, a detour from his usual high-end purveyors, on a whim, a quest for unique, undiscovered ingredients for the upcoming Golden Ladle Challenge. a prestigious national cooking competition where he intended to solidify his already legendary status. Elias moved through the market like a panther, his gaze sweeping over the vibrant displays, dismissing imperfections with a curt shake of his head or a barely audible scoff. He paused at Jed's stall, admiring a pile of perfectly uniform, gleaming red apples, then strode past, his standards clearly still unmet. His imperious presence sent a ripple of nervousness through the smaller vendors, who usually thrived on casual banter and local charm. Then, he reached Alara's stall. His eyes, initially scanning for the perfect specimen, narrowed. He saw a display of produce that, to his trained eye, was an affront to culinary aesthetics: carrots with whimsical curves, tomatoes with charmingly uneven dimples, zucchinis with an unpolished, earthy roughness. He saw flaws where Alara saw character, imperfections where she recognized unique expressions of nature. "Good morning, Chef Thorne." Alara greeted him, her voice quiet but steady, recognizing the famous figure instantly. She had heard of his reputation for exacting standards, but she had also heard of his brilliance. Elias merely scoffed, a short, sharp sound of disdain. He picked up a particularly gnarled, deeply orange carrot, turning it over in his manicured hand as if it were a scientific specimen. "And what, precisely, is this?" he asked, his voice dripping with condescension, loud enough to draw the attention of nearby shoppers and vendors. "A protest against geometry, a culinary statement on deformity." He held it up, a crooked, earthy root that looked nothing like the perfect, slender carrots often seen in gourmet kitchens. "This is not produce, madam. This is refuse, a caricature of what a carrot should be." His words, delivered with such public disdain, were a searing indictment, not just of her carrots, but of Alara herself. A wave of humiliation washed over her, hot and stinging. Other farmers, who had always quietly judged her imperfect offerings, now openly exchanged glances, their unspoken "I told you so" palpable in the air. This public mockery threatened her livelihood, confirming every unspoken criticism about her methods and her produce. She felt a familiar knot of anger tighten in her stomach, a resurgence of the frustration she had felt years ago when her own nuanced understanding of natural processes was dismissed for superficial aesthetics. "Chef Thorne," Alara responded, her voice trembling slightly but retaining its quiet dignity. "Its appearance may not meet your exacting standards, but its flavor is unparalleled. It's an heirloom variety, grown in nutrient-rich organic soil, without chemicals. The imperfections are a sign of its natural growth, not a defect." Elias snorted, dropping the carrot back into the basket with a dismissive thud. "Flavor, my dear woman. In haute cuisine, presentation is paramount. You eat with your eyes first. No Michelin-starred kitchen would ever disgrace its plates with something so aesthetically challenged. This wouldn't even pass muster for staff meals, let alone for the Golden Ladle Challenge." His pronouncement hung in the air, a definitive judgment. He believed, with an almost religious fervor, that outward perfection was the ultimate measure of quality. Alara felt a deep ache, a profound sense of injustice. Her deepest conviction, that true quality resided within, was being publicly ridiculed by a man whose influence could shatter her fragile enterprise. Her initial instinct was to retreat, to shrink into herself, to avoid confrontation, a habit formed from years of being overlooked and dismissed. Her unique farming techniques, rooted in ancient agricultural wisdom and painstakingly developed through years of quiet experimentation, were her carefully guarded secret. Exposing them to an arrogant chef like Elias, or worse, having them appropriated by others, felt like an existential threat to her farm, her identity. But the memory of Mrs. Gable, clutching her basket of ugly vegetables with such profound gratitude, flashed through Alara's mind. The genuine hunger for honest, flavorful food, the pure joy that taste could bring. And then, a deeper, more personal memory, a faded image of her grandmother, her hands gnarled by the earth, holding up a misshapen but vibrant tomato, her eyes twinkling as she said, "Never judge a book by its cover, Alara, especially not a good tomato." This legacy, this belief in intrinsic worth, surged within her, overriding her fear. She couldn't let Elias Thorne's arrogance invalidate her life's work. She couldn't allow such a superficial judgment to stand. This was her point of no return. Elias Thorne's disdain had transformed from a personal slight into a direct challenge to her fundamental philosophy, threatening not just her income, but her very belief system. She knew she had to find a way to make him, and the world, see beyond the superficial. Elias, having made his grand pronouncement, turned to leave, his mission seemingly accomplished. His eyes scanned the market for other, more worthy ingredients. But just as he was about to step back into his limousine, his gaze fell back on Alara's stall. A peculiar thought, a fleeting impulse born of cynical amusement, flickered in his mind. Perhaps a joke, a prop for my demonstration on bad produce. He reached into Alara's basket, deliberately picking up another of her crooked carrots, this one even more gnarled than the last, its root twisting into a comical knot. He tossed it casually into his assistant's waiting basket, a smirk playing on his lips. "Take this one," he instructed, his voice loud enough for Alara to hear. "For inspiration? Or perhaps as a reminder of what not to use?" He never looked back, disappearing into the sleek black car. Alara watched him go, a mix of simmering resentment and fierce determination in her eyes. He had taken her carrot, a symbol of her struggle and her quiet defiance. He had done it out of mockery, oblivious to the profound, almost spiritual value she placed on each imperfect root. He had no idea that this single, crooked carrot, chosen in an act of derision, would become the unlikely catalyst for his own reckoning, and the unexpected unveiling of Alara's true genius. The quiet farmer, with her ugly produce, was about to teach the celebrated chef a lesson he would never forget. The colossal production studio in Boston buzzed with a controlled frenzy, a stark contrast to the rustic charm of Willow Creek. Lights glared down from the rafters, cameras glided on smooth tracks, and 100 crew members moved with a silent, focused efficiency. This was the set of the Golden Ladle Challenge, a national culinary competition broadcast to millions, where chefs battled for prestige, prize money, and the coveted Golden Ladle Trophy. Elias Thorne, in his element, moved through the gleaming stainless steel kitchen with the practiced grace of a maestro. His station was a vision of culinary perfection, mise en place meticulously arranged, ingredients gleaming under the bright lights, perfectly symmetrical vegetables, impeccably marbled cuts of meat, vibrant, unblemished herbs. The main judge for this preliminary round was Chef Antoine Dubois, a living legend in the culinary world. Dubois, a man of quiet gravitas, known for his refined palate and unwavering impartiality, was often referred to as the philosopher chef for his belief that true culinary genius lay not just in technique, but in understanding the soul of an ingredient. Elias, while outwardly confident, felt a slight tremor of apprehension under Dubois' discerning gaze. Dubois valued substance over flash, a concept Elias sometimes struggled with. Elias began his preparations for the signature dish, a deconstructed root vegetable medley with pan-seared scallops. His movements were fluid, precise, a ballet of knife work and whisking. He selected the finest, most aesthetically pleasing carrots from his chilled cooler, their uniform orange gleaming under the lights. His mind, however, kept returning to the gnarled, crooked carrot he'd so disdainfully tossed into his assistant's basket back at the farmer's market. It was an unwelcome intrusion, a fleeting whisper of an unusual sweetness he had almost dismissed. He had a moment of pure, unadulterated curiosity, a fleeting desire to actually taste that ugly root. "Chef Thorne, 5 minutes to plating," a production assistant called out, her voice cutting through the focused silence. Suddenly, a clumsy intern, rushing past Elias's station with a tray of empty glasses, stumbled. One of the impeccably trimmed, perfectly straight carrots, destined for his main dish, rolled off the counter, bouncing once before landing squarely in a puddle of spilled water. Elias cursed under his breath. He looked at the ruined carrot, then at his remaining supply. He had barely enough for the precise plating he envisioned. He needed another. His eyes darted to his assistant's basket, where the joke carrot, the crooked one from Alara's stall, still lay. It was gnarled, misshapen, an abomination to his perfectionist's eye, but it was there, and he was out of time. With a grimace, Elias snatched the crooked carrot, his jaw tight. He would use it for the background sauce, a place where its unsightly appearance could be hidden, a place where its flavor, if any, could be drowned out. He began to roughly chop the crooked carrot, his knife thudding against the cutting board with an unusual force. He tossed the pieces into a simmering vegetable stock, intending it to be a mere flavor base, quickly forgotten. But as the carrot began to soften, a surprising, deeply aromatic sweetness wafted up from the pot. A scent so rich and earthy it almost made him pause. He frowned, stirring the pot. Impossible. It must be the other vegetables in the stock. As he was plating the pan-seared scallops, Elias, out of pure professional habit, dipped a clean spoon into the simmering carrot-infused stock. He brought it to his lips, his expression a mask of detached evaluation. The flavor exploded on his palate, a surprising, profound sweetness, complex and earthy, unlike any carrot he had ever tasted. It wasn't just sweet, it had depth, a hidden layer of umami that elevated the humble root to something sublime. His eyes widened imperceptibly. He took another, then another small taste. His brow furrowed in a mix of astonishment and disbelief. This was extraordinary. This was different. Unbeknownst to Elias, Chef Antoine Dubois, conducting his rounds, had paused near Elias's station. Dubois possessed an uncanny ability to read a chef's unspoken reactions, discerning truth not just from plates, but from expressions. He saw the flicker of surprise in Elias's usually stoic eyes, the subtle tension in his jaw as he tasted the stock. Dubois, known for his ability to detect a chef's genuine reaction, especially one trying to hide it, watched with a quiet intrigue. He had heard the whispers about Elias Thorne's disdain for imperfect produce, and had even seen the brief, contemptuous interaction at the farmer's market. The sight of Elias's genuine, if hidden, astonishment at the taste of his own stock suggested something profound. Dubois' gaze flickered to the discarded basket where the gnarled carrots from Alara's stall had been. A faint, almost imperceptible smile touched his lips. He knew. Elias quickly recovered his composure, his professional facade snapping back into place. He would never admit, not even to himself, that such a deformed ingredient could possess such incredible flavor. He finished plating, adding delicate garnishes, and ensuring every element was visually perfect. As his assistant, a young, eager culinary school graduate named Chloe began to whisk away the used ingredients. Elias pointed to the remaining crooked carrots in the basket with a dismissive gesture. "And make sure you throw out these aberrations." Elias muttered, his voice low, only intended for Chloe. "They serve their purpose, I suppose, for a base flavor, but they are entirely unsuitable for presentation. Don't want anyone thinking Elysium lowers its standards." He tried to sound authoritative, dismissive, but Chloe, a keen observer, noticed a slight hesitation in his voice, a faint, almost imperceptible flicker of regret in his eyes. She nodded, bewildered, unsure why such an ordinary carrot could evoke such a strong, conflicted reaction from the normally unwavering Chef Thorne. Elias had spoken outwardly, for his image, but his internal dialogue betrayed a seed of doubt, a nascent curiosity that he desperately tried to suppress. He was still the proud, perfectionist chef, but the crooked carrot had planted a question mark in his meticulously ordered culinary world. The Golden Ladle Challenge was a crucible, designed to separate the culinary masters from the merely proficient, and for Elias Thorne, the pressure was immense. The preliminary rounds had been a blur of intense focus, intricate techniques, and the familiar taste of success. Yet, beneath his veneer of confident composure, a subtle, unwelcome distraction gnawed at him, the ghost of that crooked carrot. Its astonishing sweetness, its earthy depth, had lodged itself in his palate, an anomaly in his meticulously calibrated world of flavors. He was back in his Boston restaurant, Elysium, in the days leading up to the next round. The gleaming kitchen, usually a sanctuary of controlled creativity, now felt like a gilded cage. He experimented, meticulously sourcing perfect carrots from his usual high-end suppliers. He roasted them, pureed them, caramelized them, tried every technique in his vast repertoire. He even attempted various molecular gastronomy methods, hoping to extract or recreate that elusive flavor. But none of them yielded the same profound depth, the same vibrant essence, as the ugly, twisted root from Alara Vance's farm. The difference wasn't in his technique. It was in the ingredient itself, a truth his proud, perfectionist mind struggled to accept. "Chef, the purveyor from upstate is here with the heirloom squash," Chloe, his ever-efficient assistant, announced, pulling him from his frustrated reverie. She noticed the slight tension in his shoulders, the uncharacteristic furrow in his brow. She had never seen Chef Thorne so preoccupied by a single ingredient. Elias merely grunted, waving a dismissive hand. He couldn't articulate his obsession, not even to his most trusted staff. How could he, a chef who prided himself on visual perfection, admit that a misshapen, aesthetically offensive vegetable was haunting his culinary dreams? It would be an admission of fallibility, a crack in his carefully constructed image. He was utterly alone in this internal struggle, battling his own pride and ingrained prejudices. The Golden Ladle Challenge was no longer just a competition against other chefs. It was a symbolic arena where he had to confront his own rigid doctrines, his own definitions of beauty and worth. The next challenge was announced, sending a ripple of murmurs through the culinary world, a root-to-stem innovation round. Chefs were required to create a complex dish with a single, unexpected star ingredient, the common carrot. The twist: they had to utilize every part of the carrot, from its greens to its root, and showcase its inherent versatility and flavor. The organizers, unbeknownst to Elias, had sourced a special batch of heirloom carrots for the competition, chosen for their intense flavor profiles rather than their uniform appearance. These carrots, organic and robust, were remarkably similar to those cultivated by Alara Vance, though their specific origin remained a secret to the chefs. This was fate, a cosmic joke designed to force Elias to confront his deepest culinary biases. The news hit Elias with the force of a physical blow. Carrots. Specifically, this kind of carrot. He felt a surge of dread, mingled with a strange, almost exhilarating sense of destiny. He knew, instinctively, that the perfect carrots he usually sourced would fall flat. He was being forced to face the very thing he had scorned, to rely on the type of ingredient he had so publicly mocked. The pressure intensified to an unbearable degree. He had a strict deadline, only 24 hours to conceptualize, refine, and practice his dish before the live broadcast. He had to perform under intense scrutiny. And this time, there would be nowhere to hide his ingredients' true nature. He called his usual high-end purveyors, but their heirloom carrot stock was limited, focused on aesthetics. He desperately needed the kind of raw, uncompromising flavor he had briefly, astonishingly, tasted in Alara's produce. He even considered, for a fleeting, desperate moment, driving back to Willow Creek. But pride, and the impossibility of securing enough of Alara's specific carrots on such short notice, without revealing his sudden, embarrassing interest, held him back. He was trapped by his own hubris, forced to work within the confines of his established network, all while knowing a superior ingredient existed outside it. The night before the competition, Elias found himself unable to sleep. He paced his opulent Boston apartment, the city lights below a mocking testament to his outward success and inner turmoil. His mind raced, juggling flavor profiles, cooking temperatures, plating aesthetics. But always, the crooked carrot loomed, a misshapen shadow in his culinary subconscious. He imagined Chef Antoine Dubois, his discerning gaze, his philosophical approach to ingredients. Dubois wouldn't be fooled by superficial perfection. He sought the soul of the food. Elias realized, with a dawning, terrifying clarity, that this challenge was designed to expose something deeper than just culinary skill. It was designed to expose a chef's true philosophy, his relationship with his ingredients. And Elias, with his obsession with outward appearance, felt profoundly vulnerable. He knew his reputation, his Michelin stars. His public image all rested on this one: single root vegetable. The irony was bitter, almost cruel. He finally conceded, in the quiet solitude of his kitchen. To the undeniable truth, the key to winning this challenge, the key to truly impressing Chef Dubois, lay not in artifice or elaborate technique, but in embracing the inherent, uncompromising flavor of the kind of carrot he had once dismissed as refuse. It was a humbling realization, a bitter pill to swallow for a chef who had always dictated terms to his ingredients. The pressure was suffocating, a self-imposed gauntlet. He had to prepare a dish that celebrated a flawed beauty, a testament to raw, earthy flavor, a dish that defied his own long-held prejudices. The clock was ticking, and Elias Thorne, the chef of perfection, was about to face the ultimate test of his culinary soul. The air in the Golden Ladle Challenge kitchen stadium crackled with an almost unbearable tension. Millions watched at home. The cameras zoomed in, capturing every bead of sweat on the chef's brows, every flicker of emotion on their faces. Elias Thorne, usually a picture of unshakable composure, felt the pressure like a physical weight. The challenge: create a dish centered on the humble carrot, utilizing it root to stem, and the carrots provided by the competition, while technically perfect in their freshness, carried the unmistakable, aesthetically displeasing twists and turns of heirloom varieties, the very kind he had so vehemently mocked. His inner demon of perfectionism raged against him. He began his dish, a deceptively simple roasted carrot tartare with a vibrant carrot top pesto and a delicate carrot foam. He moved with the precision of a surgeon, his knife work flawless, his movements economical. Yet, his mind was a whirlwind of self-doubt and nagging memory. He caught himself staring at the peculiar curve of a carrot he was peeling, remembering the gnarled one he had so disdainfully tossed into his assistant's basket back at Alara Vance's stall. The irony was a bitter taste in his mouth. Chef Antoine Dubois, the esteemed head judge, moved through the stations, his presence a quiet, almost spiritual force. He observed each chef with an intense, analytical gaze, his expression rarely betraying a hint of his thoughts. He paused at Elias's station, his eyes sweeping over the immaculate preparation, then lingering for a fraction of a second on the raw, unadorned carrots waiting to be roasted. Elias felt a familiar prickle of apprehension under Dubois' discerning scrutiny. He knew Dubois didn't just judge the plate, he judged the soul behind it. "Chef Thorne," Dubois murmured, his voice soft. "A beautiful presentation. As always. Your precision is admirable." He watched Elias carefully arrange the vibrant orange of the tartare on the white plate, a miniature edible sculpture. But the carrot, chef, what story does it tell? Elias maintained his professional facade. It tells a story of versatility. Chef, of transforming a simple root into a symphony of textures and flavors. He avoided addressing the imperfection of the ingredient, focusing instead on his technique. The plating complete. The final bell rang, echoing through the vast studio. The chefs stood back, their faces a mix of exhaustion and anxious anticipation. Now came the moment of truth. Chef Antoine Dubois, accompanied by his fellow judges, began their meticulous tasting. They moved slowly, deliberately, their forks pausing, their eyes often closing as they savored each bite. The tension in the room was palpable, a collective holding of breath. Finally, it was Elias Thorne's turn. Chef Antoine approached his station, his plate presented with a flourish by a production assistant. Elias watched, his heart hammering against his ribs, his usual confidence replaced by a rare, unsettling nervousness. He saw Dubois raise his fork, pierce a piece of the roasted carrot tartare, and bring it to his lips. The nindo moment arrived. Dubois chewed slowly, deliberately. His eyes, usually so expressive in their judgment, remained unreadable. His face was a mask of utter neutrality. He took another bite, then another, his gaze fixed on the plate, his jaw working slowly. Seconds stretched into an eternity. Elias felt a cold sweat prickling on his brow. Had he failed? Had his reliance on the ugly carrot, despite its internal magic, betrayed him? Was his entire philosophy about outward perfection about to be publicly, humiliatingly confirmed? The silence in the studio was absolute. Everyone holding their breath, waiting for the verdict from the legendary Chef Dubois. The camera zoomed in on Dubois' face, then on Elias's taut, anxious expression. The air vibrated with anticipation. Then, slowly, almost imperceptibly, a subtle shift occurred on Chef Antoine Dubois' face. His eyes, still unreadable, widened slightly. A faint, almost involuntary sigh escaped his lips. He lowered his fork, and then, without looking at Elias, he simply reached for another small piece of the roasted carrot. He chewed, eyes closed, a faint, almost reverent hum escaping his throat. He opened his eyes, and they were no longer neutral. They were wide with genuine astonishment, with profound delight. He looked up, directly at Elias, his gaze piercing through the younger chef's carefully constructed composure. "Chef Thorne!" Antoine Dubois' voice resonated through the studio, clear and strong, cutting through the silence like a perfectly sharpened knife. This is truly remarkable. The texture, the delicate caramelization, the earthy sweetness. I have tasted carrots from every corner of the globe, from the most pristine farms to the most exclusive hothouses. But this... He held up a single, perfectly roasted piece of carrot, its gnarled shape now softened by the cooking, its vibrant orange glowing. This is not just a carrot. This is an explosion of flavor. It is, without hyperbole, the best ingredient I have ever tasted. A collective gasp swept through the studio. Fellow chefs, their faces a mixture of envy and astonishment, stared in disbelief. The audience murmured, a wave of shock rippling through them. Elias Thorne, the epitome of culinary perfection, was being praised for an ingredient he had so publicly scorned. "Tell me, chef," Dubois continued, his voice filled with an almost philosophical curiosity. "What is the source of this extraordinary root? What secrets does it hold?" Elias Thorne felt a profound, searing flush creep up his neck. His carefully constructed world, his image, his pride all crumbled in that single, crushing moment of truth. He had to admit it. He had to face his own hypocrisy. "Chef Dubois," Elias stammered, his voice hoarse, a hint of genuine humility finally breaking through his arrogant facade. "That carrot, it's from Alara Vance, the farmer, the one I publicly criticized at the Willow Creek Farmers Market, the one with the ugly, imperfect produce." The words, heavy with irony and shame, tumbled out. Antoine Dubois smiled, a knowing, almost beatific expression. He turned to the cameras, then to the stunned audience. "Indeed, it seems I must confess, Chef Thorne, and to all of you." His gaze swept over the other chefs, some of whom looked horrified, others intrigued. "I happened to be at the Willow Creek Market that day. I witnessed Chef Thorne's performance, and while I do not condone his public dismissiveness," his eyes momentarily flickered with a hint of disapproval at Elias, "I admit, I was intrigued. I secretly purchased some of Ms. Vance's imperfect produce, including her carrots, and conducted my own preliminary tastings." He held up a perfectly roasted carrot piece, its natural curve now celebrated. "And I can confirm, unequivocally, that the depth of flavor, the profound sweetness, the sheer vitality of her produce is unparalleled. Ms. Vance is not just a farmer. She is a genius of cultivation. She understands something that many in our industry, myself included at times, have forgotten, that true beauty and true quality lie within, not merely on the surface. That the most profound flavors often come from the most unassuming, even imperfect in sources. The studio erupted in applause, a thunderous wave of vindication for the unseen. The overlooked, Elias Thorne, standing on the brightly lit stage, felt the full weight of his public humiliation, but also, paradoxically, a strange, liberating sense of release. His arrogance, his prejudice, had been publicly exposed, but in that same searing light, the undeniable truth of Alara Vance's genius and the profound beauty of her imperfect produce had finally been revealed. The farmer, scorned for her crooked carrots, had just taught the world's most celebrated chef a lesson he would carry for the rest of his life. The applause in the Golden Ladle Challenge Stadium thundered, not for Elias Thorne's culinary prowess alone, but for the profound truth Chef Antoine Dubois had just unearthed. Elias stood amidst the dazzling lights, the roar of the crowd, and the stunned silence of his fellow chefs, his face a canvas of conflicting emotions, profound shame. Yes, but also a nascent, unexpected sense of liberation. His carefully constructed world of aesthetic perfection had just shattered, yet in its shattering, a new, more authentic reality was beginning to emerge. The immediate aftermath was a whirlwind. Media swarmed, eager to capture the story of the renowned chef humbled by an imperfect carrot. Elias, for the first time in his celebrated career, found himself utterly exposed. His arrogance laid bare for millions to witness. He couldn't hide, couldn't deflect. He had to face it, directly and without artifice. In the ensuing days, while the culinary world buzzed with the carrot revelation, Elias retreated to his Boston restaurant, Elysium. The Michelin stars on his facade seemed to mock him, shining with a sterile brilliance that suddenly felt hollow. His initial reaction was a familiar surge of anger at the unexpected turn of events, at the public humiliation. But beneath it, a deeper emotion stirred, a genuine, aching shame. He realized the depth of his prejudice, the narrowness of his vision, and how profoundly he had misjudged Alara Vance. He had allowed superficiality to blind him to true quality, and in doing so, had almost missed a profound culinary truth. His personal reckoning was interrupted by a call from Fiona O'Connell, a seasoned talent scout and food industry consultant who had been subtly observing the competition and its aftermath. Fiona, a no-nonsense woman with a keen eye for both talent and market trends, had witnessed Elias's initial dismissal of Alara and Dubois' subsequent revelation. She saw the commercial potential, not just in Alara's produce, but in the compelling narrative of humility and rediscovery. She was the unwitting catalyst for the next phase, a helper who saw the opportunity for both Elias and Alara. Chef Thorne. Fiona's voice was crisp, professional. The world just saw you learn a very valuable lesson. Now, what are you going to do with it? Apologize, publicly, and genuinely. It's the only way to salvage your reputation and, more importantly, to honor the truth. Elias, for once, listened. He swallowed his pride, a bitter, unfamiliar taste. He arranged for a special segment on a prominent national morning show. The next morning, facing millions of viewers, Elias Thorne, usually so unyielding, spoke with a humility that shocked many. "I stand before you today," Elias began, his voice clear but laced with genuine contrition, "to offer my deepest, most unreserved apology to Ms. Alara Vance, the extraordinary farmer from Willow Creek, Vermont. I judged her produce, and by extension, her dedication and her unique talent, solely on appearance. My arrogance, my unwavering belief in aesthetic perfection, blinded me to the profound quality, the unparalleled flavor, that truly lay within her imperfect carrots. I was wrong. Deeply, fundamentally wrong. He continued, his gaze unwavering. Ms. Vance is a genius of cultivation. She embodies a philosophy that true culinary excellence begins with respecting the innate essence of an ingredient, not merely its superficial beauty. I have learned a humbling, invaluable lesson, and I pledge from this day forward to champion quality, flavor, and sustainable practices above all else. The apology was a watershed moment, not just for Elias, but for the industry. It marked a public shift, a powerful validation for farmers like Alara. But Elias knew words weren't enough. He had to go to Willow Creek. He had to face Alara Vance in person. The drive to Willowsong Organics was long, taking him far from the polished urban landscape of Boston into the verdant, rolling hills of rural Vermont. The air grew cleaner, sweeter, filled with the scent of damp earth and blooming wildflowers. He found Alara in her fields, her hands covered in soil, her old truck parked nearby. She looked up, her eyes, clear and unreadable, fixed on the sleek black limousine that pulled up to her dirt track. Chef Thorne, Alara greeted him, her voice calm, devoid of triumph or anger. Elias stepped out, shedding his usual veneer of authority. He felt awkward, out of place in his tailored suit amidst the honest earth. Ms. Vance, he began, his voice surprisingly soft. I came here in person to reiterate my apology. What I said at the market was arrogant, disrespectful, and utterly misguided. Your produce, your methods, they are truly extraordinary. I was a fool. Alara looked at him, truly looked at him, sensing the sincerity in his voice. It takes a big man to admit he was wrong. Chef, it takes a bigger man to truly learn from it. Elias conceded, a faint, rueful smile touching his lips. I would like to make amends. Ms. Vance, I want to buy your produce for Elysium. All of it. Not just the carrots, but your tomatoes, your greens, anything you can supply. And I want to feature your farm, Willowsong Organics, on my menus, acknowledging your crucial role in our culinary offerings. I want to tell your story. Alara's eyes widened slightly. This was unprecedented. For years, she had struggled, cultivating her land with a quiet faith, often dismissed. Now, the most celebrated chef in the region was not only apologizing but offering a lifeline, a validation of her entire life's work. And, Elias continued, emboldened by her silence, I'd like to do more. I'd like to invest in your farm, to help you expand if you wish. Not to change your methods, but to support them, to build greenhouses, improve irrigation, to help you reach a wider market for your incredible produce, to ensure that your philosophy of true flavor, of working with nature rather than against it, can flourish. He was offering not just a financial opportunity, but a partnership, a chance for Alara to finally receive the recognition and support she deserved. This was a profound gesture of atonement, a commitment to a new path. Alara felt a wave of emotion wash over her. It wasn't just about money. It was about respect. It was about her quiet faith in the inherent value of the imperfect finally being seen, being celebrated, by the very establishment that had once rejected it. Chef Thorne, Alara said, her voice filled with a quiet dignity. I accept your apology and your offer, but on one condition. You learn from the soil. You understand that true perfection is often found in the most imperfect forms. Elias nodded, a genuine, humble smile spreading across his face. Consider it my new curriculum, Ms. Vance, my new culinary Bible. The arrogance, the rigid pride, had dissolved, replaced by a genuine curiosity and a profound respect for the wisdom of the earth, and the quiet woman who tended it. He, the chef of perfection, was ready to learn from the crooked carrot. That evening, Alara sat on her porch with Chef Antoine Dubois, who had also made the journey to Willow Creek, eager to meet the genius of cultivation he had so passionately praised. The setting sun cast long shadows across the fields, illuminating the vibrant green of Alara's crops. "You know, Alara," Antoine mused, sipping a cup of freshly brewed herbal tea, "your philosophy, it's revolutionary. In a world obsessed with uniformity, you champion authenticity." Alara smiled. "The land. Chef. It teaches patience. It teaches us that beauty isn't just skin deep. My grandmother used to say, 'The crookedest carrot often holds the sweetest heart.' It's true for vegetables, and it's true for people." She paused, her gaze sweeping over her flourishing fields. "I learned to trust the soil, to trust the seeds, to trust the process. Even when everyone else told me my produce was ugly, worthless, I had to believe in its true value. Despite the mockery." Antoine nodded, a profound understanding in his eyes. "And now, because of that faith, you're changing an entire industry. You're reminding us that true flavor, true quality, always wins." He raised his cup in a silent toast. "To the crooked carrots, Alara, and to the chef who finally learned to taste their truth." Their conversation, steeped in wisdom and shared passion, laid the foundation for a profound culinary revolution, led by the unassuming farmer and the humbled chef. The applause in the Golden Ladle Challenge Stadium thundered, not for Elias Thorne's culinary prowess alone, but for the profound truth Chef Antoine Dubois had just unearthed. Elias stood amidst the dazzling lights, the roar of the crowd, and the stunned silence of his fellow chefs, his face a canvas of conflicting emotions, profound shame. Yes, but also a nascent, unexpected sense of liberation. His carefully constructed world of aesthetic perfection had just shattered, yet in its shattering, a new, more authentic reality was beginning to emerge. The immediate aftermath was a whirlwind. Media swarmed, eager to capture the story of the renowned chef humbled by an imperfect carrot. Elias, for the first time in his celebrated career, found himself utterly exposed, his arrogance laid bare for millions to witness. He couldn't hide, couldn't deflect. He had to face it, directly and without artifice. In the ensuing days, while the culinary world buzzed with the carrot revelation, Elias retreated to his Boston restaurant, Elysium. The Michelin stars on his facade seemed to mock him, shining with a sterile brilliance that suddenly felt hollow. His initial reaction was a familiar surge of anger at the unexpected turn of events, at the public humiliation. But beneath it, a deeper emotion stirred a genuine, aching shame. He realized the depth of his prejudice, the narrowness of his vision, and how profoundly he had misjudged Alara Vance. He had allowed superficiality to blind him to true quality, and in doing so, had almost missed a profound culinary truth. His personal reckoning was interrupted by a call from Fiona O'Connell, a seasoned talent scout and food industry consultant who had been subtly observing the competition and its aftermath. Fiona, a no-nonsense woman with a keen eye for both talent and market trends, saw the commercial potential, not just in Alara's produce, but in the compelling narrative of humility and rediscovery. She was the unwitting catalyst for the next phase, an ally who saw the opportunity for both Elias and Alara. "Chef Thorne." Fiona's voice was crisp, professional. "The world just saw you learn a very valuable lesson. Now, what are you going to do with it? Apologize. Publicly. And genuinely. It's the only way to salvage your reputation and, more importantly, to honor the truth." Elias, for once, listened. He swallowed his pride, a bitter, unfamiliar taste. He arranged for a special segment on a prominent national morning show. The next morning, facing millions of viewers, Elias Thorne, usually so unyielding, spoke with a humility that shocked many. "I stand before you today," Elias began, his voice clear but laced with genuine contrition, "to offer my deepest, most unreserved apology to Ms. Alara Vance, the extraordinary farmer from Willow Creek, Vermont. I judged her produce, and by extension, her dedication, and her unique talent, solely on appearance. My arrogance, my unwavering belief in aesthetic perfection, blinded me to the profound quality, the unparalleled flavor, that truly lay within her imperfect carrots. I was wrong. Deeply. Fundamentally wrong. He continued, his gaze unwavering. Ms. Vance is a genius of cultivation. She embodies a philosophy that true culinary excellence begins with respecting the innate essence of an ingredient, not merely its superficial beauty. I have learned a humbling, invaluable lesson, and I pledge, from this day forward, to champion quality, flavor, and sustainable practices above all else. The apology was a watershed moment, not just for Elias, but for the industry. It marked a public shift, a powerful validation for farmers like Alara. But Elias knew words weren't enough. He had to go to Willow Creek. He had to face Alara Vance in person. The drive to Willow Song Organics was long, taking him far from the polished urban landscape of Boston into the verdant, rolling hills of rural Vermont. The air grew cleaner, sweeter, filled with the scent of damp earth and blooming wildflowers. He found Alara in her fields, her hands covered in soil, her old truck parked nearby. She looked up, her eyes, clear and unreadable, fixed on the sleek, black limousine that pulled up to her dirt track. "Chef Thorne," Alara greeted him, her voice quiet but steady. Recognizing the famous figure instantly, Elias stepped out, shedding his usual veneer of authority. He felt awkward, out of place in his tailored suit amidst the honest earth. "Ms. Vance," he began, his voice surprisingly soft. "I came here in person to reiterate my apology. What I said at the market was arrogant, disrespectful, and utterly misguided. Your produce, your methods, they are truly extraordinary. I was a fool." Alara looked at him, truly looked at him, sensing the sincerity in his voice. "It takes a big man to admit he was wrong, Chef. It takes a bigger man to truly learn from it." Elias conceded, a faint, rueful smile touching his lips. "I would like to make amends. Ms. Vance, I want to buy your produce for Elysium. All of it. Not just the carrots, but your tomatoes, your greens, anything you can supply. And I want to feature your farm. Willow Song Organics, on my menus, acknowledging your crucial role in our culinary offerings. I want to tell your story." Alara's eyes widened slightly. This was unprecedented. For years, she had struggled, cultivating her land with a quiet faith, often dismissed. Now, the most celebrated chef in the region was not only apologizing but offering a lifeline, a validation of her entire life's work. And, Elias continued, emboldened by her silence, "I'd like to do more. I'd like to invest in your farm, to help you expand, if you wish. Not to change your methods, but to support them. To build greenhouses, improve irrigation, to help you reach a wider market for your incredible produce. To ensure that your philosophy of true flavor, of working with nature rather than against it, can flourish." He was offering not just a financial opportunity, but a partnership. A chance for Alara to finally receive the recognition and support she deserved. This was a profound gesture of atonement, a commitment to a new path. Alara felt a wave of emotion wash over her. It wasn't just about money, it was about respect. It was about her quiet faith in the inherent value of the imperfect finally being seen, being celebrated, by the very establishment that had once rejected it. "Chef Thorne," Alara said, her voice filled with a quiet dignity, "I accept your apology and your offer, but on one condition: you learn from the soil. You understand that true perfection is often found in the most imperfect forms." Elias nodded, a genuine, humble smile spreading across his face. "Consider it my new curriculum, Ms. Vance, my new culinary Bible." The arrogance, the rigid pride, had dissolved, replaced by a genuine curiosity and a profound respect for the wisdom of the earth. and the quiet woman who tended it. He, the chef of perfection, was ready to learn from the crooked carrot. That evening, Ilara sat on her porch with Chef Antoine Dubois, who had also made the journey to Willow Creek, eager to meet the genius of cultivation he had so passionately praised. The setting sun cast long shadows across the fields, illuminating the vibrant green of Ilara's crops. "You know, Ilara," Antoine mused, sipping a cup of freshly brewed herbal tea. "Your philosophy, it's revolutionary. In a world obsessed with uniformity, you champion authenticity." Ilara smiled. "The land, chef, it teaches patience. It teaches us that beauty isn't just skin deep. My grandmother used to say, the crookedest carrot often holds the sweetest heart. It's true for vegetables, and it's true for people." She paused, her gaze sweeping over her flourishing fields. "I learned to trust the soil, to trust the seeds, to trust the process, even when everyone else told me my produce was ugly, worthless. I had to believe in its true value, despite the mockery." Antoine nodded, a profound understanding in his eyes. "And now, because of that faith, you're changing an entire industry. You're reminding us that true flavor, true quality, always wins." He raised his cup in a silent toast. "To the crooked carrots, Ilara, and to the chef who finally learned to taste their truth." Their conversation, steeped in wisdom and shared passion, laid the foundation for a profound culinary revolution, led by the unassuming farmer and the humbled chef. 2 years had ripened Willow Song Organics into more than just a farm. It was a vibrant ecosystem, a living model of sustainable agriculture that hummed with purpose. The crooked carrots still twisted playfully in the rich soil. The heirloom tomatoes ripened with charming imperfections. But now, they were sought after, celebrated, embodying a quiet revolution in the culinary world. Ilara Vance, though she still preferred the tactile comfort of soil beneath her nails to the glitz of gala dinners, was no longer just a local farmer. She was a respected voice, a pioneer whose philosophy had taken root far beyond the rolling hills of Vermont. Her farm thrived, expanding thoughtfully, never sacrificing quality for scale. The small, elderly tractor, once her sole mechanical aid, now shared space with a modest, sustainably powered greenhouse, allowing for year-round cultivation of rare heirloom varieties. Students from agricultural colleges, aspiring organic farmers, and even curious home gardeners now flocked to Willow Song Organics, eager to learn Ilara's methods. She taught them about soil health, about companion planting, about understanding the nuanced language of the land. She instilled in them a respect for the natural rhythms, reminding them that true beauty often lay beneath the surface, in the vibrant health of the plant, in the unparalleled richness of its flavor. The relationship between Ilara and Elias Thorne had blossomed into an unlikely but profound partnership. Elias, humbled and transformed, had become a vocal advocate for sustainable agriculture and a champion of heirloom produce. His Michelin-starred restaurant, Elysium, now proudly featured Willow Song Organics on its menus. Each dish a testament to Ilara's unparalleled ingredients. He no longer demanded visual perfection. Instead, he celebrated the unique character of each vegetable, crafting dishes that highlighted their intrinsic flavors. He invested generously in Willow Song Organics, not with an eye for profit, but with a genuine desire to support and propagate Ilara's vital work. Their collaboration transcended mere business. It was a powerful fusion of culinary artistry and agricultural wisdom, redefining what gourmet truly meant. Beyond the farm, Ilara established the Root to Table Initiative, a non-profit foundation dedicated to educating both consumers and aspiring farmers. She organized workshops on regenerative farming practices, teaching communities how to cultivate healthy soil and grow flavorful, nutritious food without relying on harmful chemicals or genetic modification. She collaborated with local schools, creating educational gardens that allowed children to experience the magic of growing their own imperfect food, fostering a connection to the earth and an appreciation for honest flavor. She also worked closely with chefs, organizing tasting sessions and farm tours, bridging the gap between farm and kitchen, educating them on the vital importance of sourcing truly exceptional ingredients. One warm, late afternoon, as the golden light of the setting sun bathed the fields of Willow Song Organics, Ilara stood in her thriving carrot patch. The rows of green tops swayed gently in the breeze, hiding the gnarled, deeply orange roots beneath. Beside her stood Elias Thorne, his tailored jacket slightly rumpled, his demeanor relaxed and genuinely content. With them was a small group of students from Ilara's Root to Table initiative, their faces eager, their hands stained with fresh soil. Elias, with a practiced hand that no longer sought visual perfection, reached down and gently pulled a carrot from the earth. It was long and slender, but with a distinct, charming curve, a perfect spiral near its tip. He brushed off the clinging soil, its earthy aroma a rich perfume in the air. He didn't speak of its shape. Instead, he admired its vibrant color, its inherent vitality. He took a bite, slowly, deliberately. His eyes closed for a moment, savoring the profound sweetness, the earthy depth that filled his palate. It was the same astonishing flavor he had first encountered in a moment of public humiliation, a flavor that had ultimately transformed his culinary philosophy. He smiled, a genuine, unburdened smile that reached his eyes, no longer tinged with arrogance, but with profound understanding and respect. He looked at Ilara, his gaze holding a quiet reverence. "Still the best, Ilara," he murmured, his voice soft, filled with genuine appreciation. "Still the very best." Ilara met his gaze, her own eyes twinkling with a quiet triumph. She knew. She had always known. The crooked carrot, once a symbol of her struggle and dismissal, had become a beacon of truth, a testament to the enduring power of genuine quality and the profound beauty found within the imperfect. The roots of her revolution had taken firm hold, forever changing how people viewed not just food, but value itself. If this story stirred your heart, if it reminds you that courage can alter destinies and that light always finds a path even in the deepest darkness, please leave a comment. Share this story with those who need inspiration. Like, subscribe, and hit the bell to never miss our upcoming stories.